Welcome back to Dooley's Dog Pod. I'm Donna Trailer.
Noah Vice.
And this is the podcast where we talk about everything that happens on Dooley Field and Sanford Stadium with your
Dog.
Georgia Bulldogs. How many times have we done this? Anyways, so that all said, this time around we are not talking about what's happening on Dooley Field because we have an away game versus Texas this week. And my approach to this podcast episode is going to be pretty much the exact same that it was to Alabama, except a bit more pessimistic. So, that being said, let's have an opening statement from Noah.
Opening statement. I think that Georgia, bad. We won. It was a decent win. I watched the game. I wish I would take notes during the games because I see things and I go, ooh, I'm going to talk about that. Ooh, I'm going to talk about that. And I end up forgetting. But I do remember one thing, and then as our pass coverage sucks. We went in as the second worst team in the SEC for allowing passing yards, and Mississippi State was 1, pretty sure, or vice versa, flipped. I'm pretty sure we were 2. But we let Mississippi State launch bombs on us, and we're going to play a team where their best assets are their quarterbacks. So not super high on the Dogs this week, sadly. The other thing is, I thought we played fine outside of us literally just letting them throw like 100-yard nuclear missiles across the field multiple times. And eventually KJ Bolden gets a pick. Rah, rah, hoo, hoo, ha, ha. We're all good. But, yeah, it was rough. We did win, and we won by a good amount, an amount that would make me happy. Not necessarily ecstatic, because they were only 10 points off of us. We let them score way too much. But we put up a lot of points. And, it's good to see our offense rolling when historically we are okay not rolling sometimes and just putting up 3 touchdowns and then playing a crazy defense. It's hard to watch because I think Georgia's been so much of a defensive powerhouse in my eyes, in the world's eyes for so long, and this year is just, it doesn't feel like that. It feels like we have like a really good defense. We're holding our own, we're doing good things. We have moments of like, that's a Georgia defense, but a lot of the time it's riding around that like good range, not like the, oh my God, this is Georgia's defense winning them games. And yeah, I guess those are all my thoughts, blurted out and vomited everywhere. Connect them how you please.
Okay, well, I'll definitely agree with the fact that this year, like historically, as far as the last like 5-10 years, especially under Kirby, we have been a team that wins our games in our defense. And this year, that is very much not the case. We are a team that has to rely on our offense. Because it used to be, like you just said, score so much or whatever, and then just hold off with the defense. But now it's like our defense isn't holding off. And so, like, we have to rely on our offense to outscore. Like, we have never been a Georgia team where we are trying to just outscore the opponent instead of just trying to score just enough and then just hold them off. And it's weird because you would think that this is when we would be loving it because it's like, oh my gosh, our offense is doing so good.
Yeah.
But it's like when our defense feels like it's just completely fallen off. Like if this was just normal for us, it'd be like, I think we'd feel like we're doing fine.
Yeah.
It's just like defensively, it's very jarring. So right before we started, Noah said that he can't believe that we stayed 5. And I will now dive into why I believe that is the reason.
All ears.
So.
Only ears.
Yep. Only ears. So I think that we, stayed number 5 in the rankings, mainly because, right? Obviously Texas wasn't going anywhere at 1. But there was room for movement between 2 to 4, which at the time last week, I think was Ohio State, Oregon, Penn State, right? So each of those teams with a win, if it's Ohio State's going to stay in the same spot or whatever, like if they all win, they stay in the same spot. But obviously that couldn't be the case because Oregon and Ohio State,
they all win,
played each other. So Penn State wins, so they're not going to be ranked behind a team who lost. So that means whoever, if it was a blowout in the Oregon-Ohio State game, then one of them could drop out below us, we could bump up. But it was far from a blowout. Like, they had a great game that was back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. the score like was a 1 point differential for like well over half the game.
Which
and
game
then
are you
that
talking
ended
about?
up being the final score, Oregon, Ohio State.
Okay, yes.
Okay. So it's like they went blow for blow. Like they were neck and neck the entire game. And so you can't very well have like the person who loses in that game, or the team rather, like drop out very far in general, especially when you have to consider the fact that it's 2 versus 3 and 3 versus 2. But then when it's 2 versus 3, 3 versus 2, and you see that, neither one of these are as much as a fraud as everybody thought they were, because they're hanging
Or they're
in
just
there.
as equally
Maybe
fraudulent.
so. That could be true. But at least watching the game, it didn't seem like that. Like their offenses seem like they are sick. And I will say that the reason, especially Ohio State, the reason that I was like in it, like at the end, like I really hope Oregon wins, is because it felt like watching Ohio State that if they were to play us, every single pass they make would be a touchdown. They throw the ball one time, it's a touchdown. They throw the ball one time, it's a touchdown. And so I was like, at least if it's Oregon who we end up having a matchup against, maybe it'll be every other pass is a touchdown instead of every single one. And so, yeah. So I just like, Ohio State has a loss, yes, but their performance in their game where they lost was consistent all the way through. Yes, we pulled off this miracle comeback, which is the only reason we're still in the top 5 in the first place in our Alabama game and our one loss. But like, they were like this. So I definitely don't think they're going to put them behind us. And then obviously Penn State won, Oregon won, and Texas won. So they have to be before both of us.
I mean, there's a lot of truth to that, in the sense of, we can't expect Georgia to be consistent for 4 quarters. Sadly, it's just not realistic. So I agree with you on the fact that it was very consistent across the board with those two teams. I was really sad, not to totally switch roads here, but really sad to see Penn State win, because I was really hoping for USC to pull it off. And to be fair, they should have. Their kicker just couldn't do it when he needed to, which sucks for him. I hope Bro's okay.
Yeah.
But it was a fun game, especially for them going against an unranked USC.
Yeah.
That would have been such an upset. Yeah.
Literally, it was so close. There were so many games this weekend that were so close.
Yeah, it was a really good week of college football.
It wasn't as good as obviously the prior week, but it was pretty good.
The prior week was just insanity.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Alabama almost lost again.
Yeah.
Like, to South Carolina.
Yeah, Alabama's interesting. Somebody I saw said Georgia broke Alabama.
Well, see, I just
like,
know a lot of
maybe.
people who have been saying, and it makes sense when you look at it, like, Alabama played their best game of this season by a quadrillion against us. And some people have said that Jalen Milroe played his best game of his entire life, potentially of his career. Won't ever play that good again.
Yeah.
And it's like, it took all of that and us starting in the first half of that game like we'd never seen a football before, and they still barely beat us. Do you see how crazy that is? And it's like, I feel like initially you said Alabama's like interesting. I feel like you were wanting to say like they're kind of on fraud watch, but it's like we can't say that when they beat us. But at the same time, when you think about the circumstances of that game, it's like, obviously, I'm not saying that
Bro,
we
we're
didn't do
on
what we
fraud
did.
watch.
Yeah, I mean, we definitely, in a sense, are. But it's like, to think about the fact that Alabama has that game against us, like not perfect game, but like as close to it as they might ever get.
Yeah.
In this new era. And then they lose to Vandy. And then the next week, if South Carolina doesn't forget how to play football in the last 2 minutes of the game, they win.
They played so well.
Did you see the end of that game, though?
I was watching it in the Thai restaurant that I went to for lunch.
Okay.
Pretty good.
Well, literally, they had the chance to, like, take the lead. And I think that I can't remember exactly how they got in the situation, but they kicked a field goal and then they went for 2. I mean, not went for 2. Then they kicked an onside kick.
Yes.
And they got it. They recovered the onside kick. And so with like less than a minute left, they only had to get to field goal range to win the game.
Yeah.
And it was just like launch the ball out of bounds, launch the ball way over their person's head, and then completely loft the ball in what was almost like a Hail Mary, but you only had one receiver down there and 3 defensive backs from Alabama, and so they caught it for an interception, and that's how they won the game. But it's like,
Maybe
if
I
you
left
just
the Thai
don't,
restaurant
maybe
in the
so.
last 2 minutes
If you
of the game.
don't go crazy in that sense and you just do just enough to get in a field goal range, it was like they were trying to go for a touchdown instead of just getting a field goal. I'm like, y'all just, if
Yeah.
you get in field goal range, you win the game.
Yeah.
You need like 15 yards, maybe. And so it was just so crazy. And I was like, the fact that Alabama almost lost 2 regular season games in a row
Oh, yeah.
is absurd.
I'm really curious. The other thing was South Carolina was in Tuscaloosa.
Yeah, that was a little crazy too.
Yeah. So going into this week, curious if Alabama beats Tennessee. I'm not sure they will.
Well, see, I don't know because
If
it's
they
really
keep
interesting.
playing like they have the last 2 weeks, they will not win in Tennessee.
Yeah, and that's kind of crazy because, which I mean, we're in the same boat, but like in my opinion, arguably, 2 losses means you're pretty much out of the SEC championship at this point. Because, like for the most part, the other like Texas and Texas A&M are like first in our league, in our conference rather. And
I don't think anybody's gonna beat Texas. Yeah.
And then, who is it? Texas A&M. They're probably gonna have 1 loss, but I don't know that they're gonna have more than that because who do they play? They play LSU, so that should be a loss. Next they play Mississippi State, they'll probably beat them. They play South Carolina, they'll probably beat them.
LSU is also undefeated.
They play Texas at the end of the year in the regular season, so
I think if LSU keeps winning games, it's either between Texas and Texas A&M. We're right on the trail behind them. I'm not sure how rank. And if we don't beat Texas, we won't go in over anyone. Interesting. It'll be interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. And so it's a lot to think about, but a lot hinges on this game. And like, it's
Vandy's 1, 2, 3.
Randy what?
It's in the top 10 SEC teams, ahead of Kentucky, Oklahoma, Ole Miss,
I'm like,
Florida,
good
and
for
Missouri.
them. Good for them. But yeah, like I think that a lot hinges on this game, and it's like that's not a good thing because
For us?
yes.
Oh yeah, this
Because
is awful.
This is one of those times when, like, for the first time in a very long time, I feel like we have our backs against the wall, and it's like we have to figure out how if we're gonna like fight our way back, or if we're gonna like be like, all right, we're gonna have to try to figure out a new path to like getting back into the playoffs / in the top or whatever. Because if we lose this game, which at this point I'll be more surprised if we win than I will if we lose. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I'm like, we win this game, I'll be like, oh okay, like, hey, this is good. But like we lose, I'll be like, okay. I just don't want it to be a blowout. That's unless it's us winning, obviously. But yeah, this just makes me nervy
Oh, absolutely.
because I'm like, I just don't
I
just don't know.
So my thing is going into this week. This is I guess an opposite week where we're not talking as much about the last week and more about the week upcoming. Going into the weekend, I am very concerned for us playing away. We don't play well away. Last year we didn't play away that many times, and this year we play away a lot. We play our hardest games away. We won by 1 against Kentucky. We lost to Alabama. Now we're going to Texas, the new face of the SEC, who seems to be insane. Now, that being said, they could be total frauds. The only real team they've played is Michigan when they were ranked 10. Michigan's just not that good.
I wouldn't consider them a real team.
Yeah, and then Oklahoma, and they're also a new SEC team, which is like, are they really that good? So we could be insanely surprised. Georgia could go and win by 100, but I just simply don't think that's going to happen because of our away performances normally.
Georgia could go win by 100.
Yeah,
it's crazy that Texas has only played 2 SEC games. Though.
Yeah,
that's kind of wild.
Yeah, well, it's early this season, I guess. But yeah, so with our history of not performing great, we'll see if Carson Beck can keep his head on straight, because that's the other thing is, he's started to play better. I do think he's looked more comfortable the last week or so, in the sense of where against Alabama I was like, dear God, start somebody else. Now it's like, all right, I believe in you enough so that you keep doing it. Also, very interesting in our sense of how we are playing offense this year. It's a lot of passing. Like Carson Beck has a lot of passing attempts, and our running backs are just on injury protocol every other week. It's just rotating. Okay, this guy's injured. All right, we're putting this guy in. All right, this guy's injured, but this guy's healed up now. He's going in. Oh, now he's injured. We're putting the new guy in. Oh, the second guy is now healed. He's going to play. The backup gets injured. Oh, now the one man is healthy again. He's back in. And so it just feels like we're depending a lot on Arian Smith and Carson Beck because sadly our tight ends have not been insane this year. Oscar Delp been a little lackluster.
Lawson
Lucky has Lucky has kind of started to shine a little bit, and I trust that kid a lot. But when I say that, he's also a kid, very young player. Technically, the two coming into the year, I don't know where he rides. I'll put him and Oscar on a teetering little level there. And then offensive line injuries is another issue that we have with guys coming back. So, I'm a little nervous going into the week. And again, back to the statement from earlier, we have, I guess, the second or first most passing yards against us than anyone else in the SEC, and we're going to play a team where their best player is their quarterback in two different people.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm what's so funny about it is so first of all, this is the first time that we have been the for real deal underdog in 3 years, 4 years?
So yeah, it's been a long time.
And
I think
so
longer than that.
It's kind of crazy because here's my thing, right? As I stated earlier, I'll be more surprised if we win this game. I'm still very much hoping that we do. Don't get me wrong. I'm going to be cheering for the Dogs. But at the same time, I'm not as emotionally
connected.
Invested in a sense because, I've already prepared. You know what I mean? And so it's here, basically what I'm trying to say is, I'm not going to be running up and down, pacing, freaking out like I was against Alabama. If things don't go our way, I'm going to be all right, let's figure out another way. Instead of being oh my God, what's going on? How? Because at this point, it's not going to be a shock anymore.
Yeah.
Because I feel like that's what it was against Alabama. It was I had never seen us play like that, anywhere close. I guess kind of you could say we did against Kentucky, but defensively against Kentucky, I think we were pretty solid.
Yeah, the thing with Kentucky,
our offense then was struggling.
The thing with Kentucky that I think I don't always think about when I look at the score, and I think a lot of people just don't remember, is their kicker just kept hitting 50-plus yarder field goals. Literally, they had to get a first down, and then he would just kick.
They didn't score a touchdown against us.
Yeah, it was just field goals. So, in that sense, our defense played really well against Kentucky. And honestly, played well against Alabama in some capacity. In the second half, really came out, except for a few mistakes. First half, we were getting pieced up, but second half really figured it out.
Yeah.
So there's there's glimmers of hope.
Yeah. It's just against Alabama too, to your point, if you look at it as a grand scheme or whatever, you look at especially the second half, we did do fairly well, but you do have it's those key plays where we got
moments.
Yeah. And
how many moments can we win? We got one moment. We only need one more moment.
Okay, calm down, Cody. I was oof, because those are the ones. That's what you remember. You know what I mean? You remember the highlight reel of our players getting, Ryan Williams, and so it's just a lot. But that said, I do want to note that we have I think you kind of touched on it a little bit earlier, but injuries have been a problem across the board. You talked about more with the running backs, which Branson Robinson got hurt this weekend, and
MCL.
It's this is rough, but more so in our defense as well. We've been, because so we talked about how much we used to be a defensive heavy team or whatever, and it's I feel so much of that started with our D-line. And it's our D-line this year, Jordan Hall has still not played for us. He was supposed to be a starter. He's supposed to be really good. So you have Jordan Hall who's out or whatever, Michael Williams and Warren Brinson who got hurt in the first game. Warren Brinson is back. He's not that close to 100, or he's close to 100%. Michael Williams is basically functioning on 60%. Every single time he leaves the field, his ankle is still not right.
Yeah.
He's just trying to play through it, which is making it worse.
Yeah.
And so every time he leaves, he's still limping and whatnot. And it's you got to think about the fact that we have 2 D linemen who were playing injured. We have one guy who would be a starter who's not playing at all.
But see, back to that, it's like, why do we play Michael against Mississippi State?
Well, honestly, because I think we needed a strong performance, like, in general, to bounce back. Like,
Do we need to bounce back? Let bro heal for Texas. Ole Miss. I mean, Ole Miss now is kind of like teetering off to what people thought they were going to be, but still,
arguably,
let bro heal. Like,
I guess so.
and that's also back to the conversation of like the sophomores and like NIL and transfers kind of changing how the world of football works. And it's like, yeah, maybe that I do get the fact that it's like, well, the next man up is not as good as the next man up used to be. Where the next man up was like the next star of this team. And it's like a little bit of like, if you want the strong performance, it's like, well, he needs to play. And Jalen Walker's been playing a little more inside linebacker than he has been recently, and I think he's better on the edge. The other thing is, like, Jalen Walker is just a unit of a man. I think you could put him at D-tackle and he would perform well.
Yeah, we've had to move a bunch of people around.
That's the other thing. Everybody on this team is playing out of position.
Yeah, I don't think that is a good point. Because, like, also, too, with, like, our DBs, that's another thing. Is, like, when we played against Clemson, we had, like, Dan and Malachi. No, not Malachi.
KJ?
Who was the other one? I think it was KJ. KJ and Dan were like our safeties. Mm-hmm. And then for whatever reason, we moved like one of them up to be a, like Dan pretty much played safety still all the time. But we like moved KJ. Dan. We just moved stuff around from the Clemson game, and we need to go back to how our lineup was then. Because I feel like that's our best defensive performance this year, in my opinion.
And Clemson's good. And I don't know if they were at the level of as good at that point as they are now. Like, I think they've performed really well. But, yeah, Clemson was, I think, a good team that we played really well against.
Yeah. And so there's that point that I was going to make. And then, oh, my gosh, you said something else, and I should have wrote it down because I forgot. OMG. Okay, oh well. Yeah, it's just like, I don't know. We do have to actually factor in the fact that we have a depleted defensive side of the ball. I think offensively we've been fine. Like, we've been okay. You were saying, Carson, like, you feel like he's been on the up and up. Mm-hmm. I think I mentioned this. If I haven't, then I should have. But the whole white leg sleeves. So every single time that Carson Beck has had arguably a rough game, mm-hmm. he's had a white leg sleeve on. That's been the past 4 weeks. Before that, he never wore a white leg sleeve before. It's always been a black leg sleeve. But the first time he wore a white leg sleeve was against Kentucky. And this man had arguably one of his worst games.
Jesus Christ.
The second time he wore a white leg sleeve was against Alabama. We know how that game went.
You know he's going to wear one. You know he's going to wear one this week. Because we're away.
Third time he wore a white leg sleeve was against Auburn last week. It was like, he had, in my opinion, his best performance of the times he's worn one.
In a white leg sleeve?
Yeah. And then Saturday, he wore 2 white leg sleeves. We were like, oh my God, are they going to cancel each other out? How does this work? But he wore 2, and he threw 2 interceptions against Mississippi State.
One of those was not his fault.
One of them technically was not his fault. But it's like, at least one, the other one definitely was. Yeah. It's like, okay, what are we doing? You know what I mean? And it's like, I need everyone to be so serious. I know this is so goofy, but like, Carson Beck, I don't know how this is ever going to get to him. But like, please,
you know he's gonna wear one.
Stop wearing white leg sleeves. Go back to wearing black leg sleeves. I think that's it. I really do think that's it.
He's going to wear one.
I know he is, but like he's been wearing
away jerseys.
He's been wearing them at home too. That's my point.
It's because we have those stupid gray pants and we can't change the jerseys because Kirby Smart's like, well, I don't think we need to change the jerseys to get the fans excited. Can we just have a black jersey game?
Yeah, it'd be great. But it's just like he's been doing that, and it's like, dude, if you wear a black leg sleeve, I guarantee you'll have a better game. This is just
maybe no leg sleeve.
Observation. I mean, I don't know. So, anywho, I just think it's really funny. I can't believe I hadn't mentioned that to you.
I have not heard that.
Yeah, I can't remember, or Sandy pointed it out. And
y'all be looking at the clips way too much.
The Alabama game.
Yeah.
And she was like, or at the Alabama game, she was like, you know what's weird? He's never worn a white leg sleeve before. And I was like, what? And she's like, yeah, what? And so we were like joking about it. And then like every time since, it's been like, I just want to see what happens. Maybe it'll be completely debunked. But Carson, if you wear a black one and all of a sudden you play like, I don't freaking know. Maybe that'll be it. I don't know. Turning Tom Brady. I don't know. So, that all said, games to look out for this weekend. I think obviously our game.
Georgia, Texas.
We're gonna be the 7:30.
You know, another thing I'll bring up before we move forward. Back onto our DBs. We only have 3 interceptions this year.
Yeah, we haven't
And
done.
we've played teams that we should have more than 3 interceptions.
Yeah, we haven't had the best like turnover ratio in like
That-
a very long
like,
time.
It's all back to the defense option, but like, or the defense conversation of like, we've had a lot more turnovers before, and something is not happening with us to generate. We're not generating turnovers. We're not playing defense to generate turnovers. Playing defense to like stop touchdowns, and because of that, they're just driving. Yeah, and it's like, I don't know. It's a recruiting thing, and maybe these guys need to develop a little bit, or maybe they didn't develop as much as we thought they were going to, or maybe they're just in a rough patch. But something is wrong on the level of stopping people throwing for 500 yards against us.
That was what I was gonna say that you said earlier is about the argument of like our second, like our twos are not as good as they used to be. I don't really think that. I mean, yes, but also no, because everybody's twos, like it's an even playing field in a sense.
Yeah, but I
It's
think
like-
because of the injuries, we've had to go to our twos a lot more than some other teams. Like,
mean-
we've been on our twos all year. We didn't even have a game where we had a full starting lineup of ones. We've been injured since preseason.
Yes, but like your point was that our twos aren't as good as they used to be because
Yeah.
of the transfer portal.
Yeah.
But it's like, well, we're getting other people's twos and people are getting our twos. So it all just kind of evens out in a sense. But I get your argument.
I don't know about that. I think the other sense of that is like when it's evened out more for teams like Georgia and Alabama who like have this kind of history of like, oh, I want to go there, where they would have deeper depth charts than teams like Vandy. And that's an extreme example, but I think where it's like these twos go to this place, these twos go to this place, I think it is evened out more between all the teams rather than like these blue chip like top 5, top 10 teams every year where they kind of had a lot more depth and a lot more talent because guys were like, oh, I want to go play here because there's no NIL. Like there's no money offers from other schools. And now it's like other schools who are smaller can offer money or people who support them can offer them NIL deals where it's like, okay, I can be a 2 at Georgia or a 3 at Georgia, not get paid a ton, and maybe I'll play in a year or 2. Or I can go to this like random team on like in the Midwest Conference, get paid, be a 1, and I'm only a sophomore. I think that's where the evening it out is. It is evening out between all the teams rather than like previously these. If you were a top 25 team consistently, you had a deeper depth chart than anyone outside of it.
I can see that. That's why I said, like, I get your point. It makes sense, but like, we are a part of all the teams, so I don't know. But yeah, like, I think that we just, I don't know. I think for a minute there, like the 22 season or the 21 season, we had like the strongest defense in the country overall, arguably in history. And then we went through a breakdown on our defensive line and we rebuilt that. And then it was like, okay, now it's time to break down the secondary and rebuild that. And it's just like been a little bit of a struggle. But that said, I do think we have good players.
I think we do too.
It's just like, again, we do get everybody's best performance. And sometimes plays don't go your way. It's just we remember those ones more so than we remember the good ones.
Yeah.
But yeah, like games to look out for us, obviously. But then the next set, in my opinion, that is fairly, or next game, obviously, is the Alabama-Tennessee game. That should be interesting because both of them are coming in with a loss. So somebody has to walk away without one.
I really
And-
think Tennessee wins. Tennessee's home. They're. I haven't looked at the score predictions of like ESPN analytics, but I would assume they are underdogs by a little bit.
Yeah.
Less than 10.
Yeah.
So I would say they probably win this game at home. It's a really big game for them. Fans are going to show out. I do dislike Tennessee fans, but they are rowdy and they are passionate, and I can support that, as I will bark at babies.
Oh my God.
So
Too much.
no, just enough. So I do think Tennessee is going to create an environment that is very hard for Alabama to play in, unless they really lock in this week. But from the last 2 weeks, it's been like we can't get on the same wavelength of like losing to Vandy. South Carolina's playing. And after that, it looks like they're going to go to Tennessee and lose. Okay. And maybe it'll be a tight game, and it'll be fun, and maybe one moment will change it, and they'll pull it off. But I think it'll be a bigger than a one moment type of game.
You want to know what I think is so interesting, actually, about that?
What?
Tennessee played. Who was Tennessee's most recent
Tennessee
game?
is also coming off a win, but it's against Florida, and it should have been a loss.
Okay.
Honestly.
Yeah, and what's so funny about that is they went into that game ranked 8th. Mm-hmm. They won in a game that they could have lost, mm-hmm. and they dropped all the way to 11th. Mm-hmm. The same thing happened to Alabama, arguably in a worse sense. They let South Carolina score 19 unanswered points, and then they end up losing by 2 because not of anything that they really did, just because South Carolina kind of dropped the ball, almost literally, and Alabama stays where they are.
Listen.
So they're 7 and Tennessee is 11, and they were 1 away from each other going into last week. And in my opinion, Tennessee arguably had a better performance. That's crazy.
It is no secret that the AP polling and college football playoff decision making a little biased.
Favors Alabama.
Yeah, I think they favor a few teams, but yeah, definitely Alabama.
That's actually crazy because that was the next thing that I was going to bring up was kind of because I don't think there's really many other games to look out for. Go ahead.
The other thing is I think people who vote on that would view South Carolina as a stronger team than Florida.
I can see that.
And losing to Arkansas is not as bad as losing to Vandy. I think Arkansas is actually a decent team. But yeah, I think that's where it lies, is that South Carolina is a stronger team than Florida. Yeah. But winning and dropping by that much is insane.
Yeah.
So yeah, I do think Tennessee gets their get back this week.
It would be really funny if they do. That might have been part of the reason that they did it, is Tennessee's got a point to prove.
They're trying to send Alabama to the ether.
Well, they're just trying to make lore.
Yeah.
I feel like that arguably, I said it last week, was why they had Ohio State and Oregon 2 and 3.
Well, there's so much of the polling that is a money scheme to just make games more interesting.
Yeah. That said, let's say hypothetically we lose this weekend. I really hope that we don't.
Where do we go?
Exactly.
8 or
because at that point we'll be We'll be the only team in the top.
Holy.
Well,
10.
Yeah, at least 10, maybe even 15 with 2 losses.
That's insane.
And so
Georgia goes out of the top 25?
Well, actually, technically, Alabama and Tennessee's game is before us, and one of them's going to have to lose. But you know what I mean.
As the season goes on, it will catch up. But.
Yeah, but it's we become the only team until Ole Miss.
We're fighting to get ranked 12 by the end of the year.
Literally.
I said this watching
Which
the game.
Which is horrifying.
This weekend, and I said it to my girlfriend.
Because hold on, I got one more point to make real quick. Here's the reason why that's scary. Because if let's say they do say, okay, mathematically looking at the numbers of blah, 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 we can't rank a 2-loss Georgia team X, Y, and Z, and we drop out of the top 12, and you just made the argument of we'll be fighting to get in the top 12. Our claim to fame is the difficulty of our schedule and the fact that we have to play Tennessee and Ole Miss, both of which have fallen off. And so now our strength of schedule argument is starting to decline. And so now it might not be we might.
Well, we'll see. If Tennessee beats Alabama, they don't.
Well, yeah, but initially we were able to make the argument of we got to play Tennessee and Ole Miss and X, Y, and Z and da.
Ole Miss is definitely falling off.
Put us into the top, even if we do have 1 or 2 losses. But now it's oh my gosh, and that's really freaking scary because the only other way for us to get in is to make the conference championship, which we're not going to do with 2 losses.
Yeah,
potentially. So I just had to make that point because I just thought about that and I'm that's insane.
Well, we were watching the game this weekend. I was watching with my girlfriend who understands 0 of football. Mm-hmm. I tell her who the quarterback is every week. And she can't see the ball on the screen. Anyway, I watched some play during our game and I looked at her and I go, yep, we're not going to a national championship this year. And it's we're just not a national championship team. If we make it through... If we don't get a bye week, which it is looking like we probably will not, based on where we're at right now. Maybe we will. Maybe we'll pull it off. I'm not sure if we'll make it out of this first week. And if we do, we'll definitely lose in the second. Now that may change if everybody comes back healthy.
I don't know. I wouldn't say definitively. I think that if we make the playoff, we have a strong push to make a national championship. But I think that the struggle initially is just going to be making the playoffs.
See, I think the strong push thought is just what's going to break me down more emotionally.
Well, see, but my thing is, I think our biggest test again is going to be this weekend. Because let's say we do beat Texas, that's gonna be our first first real show that like when our back is against the wall, we can win a game. Because when our back was against the wall against Alabama, did we put ourselves there? Yes, but like we did fight back and almost win that game. Mm-hmm. That said, it's Alabama, so there's always been this like mental hump for Georgia. I think that there's less of that argument against Texas now. Obviously, we could come out and get smacked. You never know at this point. I wish that it was as consistent as it used to be, where I could be like, oh, we're 100% going to win this game. It's going to be a blowout. It's going to yada. But like, I do think that like this is the first time that our backs are for real deal against the wall. And it's like, if we perform well in this game and win, then it's like, okay, now again, that's going to just help my argument that I'm making now, which is like, if we make the playoff, I think we'll do what we have to do to win, to at least get to like through the second round. Like you were saying.
I just feel like the story of the season, if we don't win this week, is going to shape out to being like, how many moments did we miss narrowly that we could have won these games?
Yeah.
And like, how many times do we miss it? And, you know, going forward, we'll see what happens. But I think if we can make it, yeah. I think if we have a fully healthy team, we'll be fine. We can make a serious push in the playoffs. But that's the other thing is like the way we're trending this season, it's like, what are the odds we have a fully healthy team, even with that break in between championships and playoffs? So,
yeah.
I don't know.
It's pretty crazy, to say the least. But
I'm terrified.
Wow, that's funny.
Oh,
that's my line.
Well, I have to. Okay, so other thing, I'm going to Texas.
Yeah.
So my fear is, I'm gonna lose. Mm-hmm. Me and my girlfriend are gonna be the only ones in Georgia gear. Her parents are gonna be wearing Texas gear because they're haters. Well, her sister went to Texas.
Oh.
And so that's the whole thing.
Well, that's a beef.
Yeah, and so I'm gonna be there sad, and her dad's just gonna be yapping because every time Georgia performs bad, I get a text, and it is in the Alabama game. I got the Rocky gif of someone screaming, "Throw in the towel."
I'm crying.
Before we started to eventually score.
That's hilarious.
And like the only thing I could say is like, I don't know what's happening. And because, you know, I'm the king of yap. And if your team loses, I will text you.
The king of yap.
Like literally, I sent a gif of the duck from
That's
Oregon
so
dancing
funny.
to all of the interns who went to Ohio State from the summer at 7:30 in the morning.
That's hilarious.
Because I'm the number one hater. And I will be an op in your life 100% of the time.
Number one hater.
And if Tennessee didn't win, I was going to text my girlfriend's dad at like whatever time of the night and just send gifts, a bunch of them.
Yeah.
I debated texting the president of the Hall of Fame with a duck gift because he is a diehard Ohio State fan.
That's hilarious.
Because I'm a number one op. I have no sense of hierarchy in my brain of who people are. And I just want to talk about how your favorite team lost.
I am a number one op. Okay, so then, but you're saying as much as you dish it out,
Oh, I am fully prepared to take it because people are aware that I will do these things. Yeah. And so I put a target right between my eyes.
That is hilarious.
Yeah, and so I am a little nervous that there's going to be some conversations this week.
You should be.
Yeah, and so the other thing is all the other fans. Like, if we win, we can go, the Texas fans will be sad, and I'm like, good job, guys. Welcome to the SEC. You tried your best. Like, in that situation, I'm in foreign territory. I'm not your op. If I know you, absolutely. But, good try, guys. But if we lose, I'm just sad in a sea of the enemy. And I just have to, work my way out of, every situation. I'm going to have to go home and put on a Texas shirt.
That's
and just,
hilarious.
blend in.
Stop.
Tell a camera operator at that game to have a camera on me if we lose this game.
Oh,
You're just going to see the Georgia shirt just come off. Just immediately vanish into the air of Texas fans. Just stupid orange. I hate orange teams. Clemson, Tennessee, Texas.
Oh my God,
Hate
wait,
'em.
me too.
Hate them. Stupid teams.
That's
Miami's
so funny.
almost there. Almost on the list.
Orange. I hate orange teams. Literally.
Stupid
me.
color.
Oh my God.
Syracuse, you can get it too.
What's so funny is I used to love the color orange. That's what's so weird. When
Ugly
I
color.
was in elementary school, I love the color orange. But like now, I'm like, and it's just not even like take out the sports argument. Like I really just am not a fan of the color orange like that. And then you put the sports argument back in there, and it's just like, yeah, all these annoying teams, orange. It's like go away. Okay, I have a score prediction. I put it in the.
I also have one
in the document.
I'm not looking at it.
Okay, good. I don't have an our score, their score though. I will say, I think that this is gonna be the score of the game. I don't know who's gonna win.
Oh God. You're gonna. I was gonna. This is okay. All right, we'll pick their score. Pick one of them.
Okay. Ready?
Yeah.
1, 2, 3,
38.
48. Okay. Okay. Our score? 1, 2, 3, 41.
35. That's crazy.
I know.
The first ever podcast, either one of us has picked us losing.
I know. That's what's
And
insane.
it's the same one.
No, because okay, wait.
I've been holding this in all week
because
because I knew it was going to be something. I knew I was going to have something that wasn't like.
change it back.
I was going to pick a score that wasn't us like winning, and I was like, "Oh, I'm going to tell Donna, this is the first time I'm ever going to pick us losing." I was like, "I can't tell her. I'm going to do it. I can't tell her. I got to do it on the podcast." You did it too.
Well, okay, so I changed my back. I had 45 initially, and then I changed it to 48. I'm going to change it back to 45. So I have 41 to 45.
That's a really good score prediction. I like that.
I don't know who's going to win. I picked us as the loser because we are the underdog and because I don't know. Like, I'm not as confident as I'd like to be. But we could win.
Oh,
but
if we
I
win,
just look at, like, Texas.
lovely.
Yes, they haven't played the strongest of teams across the board, whether offensively or defensively. But they haven't scored less than 31 points this year.
Yeah, wholeheartedly, I believe that we're not going to win, which sucks. But I would love for my pick to get faded and us just blow them out and me be like jumping and cheering rather than like, ooh, I got my score prediction right. Hopefully.
Oh, I will say I got our score right this past week. Let's just say that. Throw that out there real quick.
Last week?
Go on.
Again?
Our score right.
Oh.
Not,
I was
not
like,
the whole thing.
I was like, again?
No. Anyhow.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Yeah, so that's where I'm at.
41 to 45.
What did I say, 35, 38?
35, 38. But 41 to 45.
I almost want to say 34, 38 because I feel like we'll go for 2 and miss it on like a comeback. But
I'll just put 34 in parentheses.
okay.
I'm also going to put 48 in parentheses for mine.
Okay.
But I'm at least going to say that it won't count if I get it right.
Oh, I know.
Like 41 to 45 is my actual.
Yeah. It's not going to count because you didn't pick the teams.
Yes, it will. Yes, it will.
No, it won't.
But yeah, so it's still the right score prediction.
No.
I don't know.
I hope we
So
win.
we'll see. Anyways,
I hope we win.
I really hope we win. I'd love to come back next week and the whole podcast is just I was like, ah! Like just screaming the entire time, just like
gonna be
jumping for joy.
Yeah, talk about energy. Your neighbors are going to call the police.
Oh my god.
Also, it is
literally.
9 a.m. on a Tuesday.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. I feel like we had pretty decent energy for it to be this early in the morning.
I'm so tired.
Because I'm literally still asleep.
Yeah, I am too.
Anyways, so this has been Dooley's Dog Pod. I'm Donna Trailer.
I'm no advice.
And hopefully we will not be doing our second podcast after a loss ever next week. But we'll see. We play Texas and hopefully we beat them. But we are not the most confident. This is the least confident I've ever been in Georgia. And it's very depressing. But you know what? It is what it is. Go Dogs.
I feel like that team just made me become a realist. I can't be optimistic anymore. This team has broken me as much as they've broken Alabama.
Stop. Anyways, we will talk to y'all next week. Peace out.